doesn't matter what their sexual identity or what their gender orientation is. It's wonderful to work with people who dance like this. And I was reading these articles about them, and they were being interviewed, and one dancer said, well, as an artist, as a dance artist, you're always on stage, and as a non-binary dancer, you're always performing. And that kind of broke my heart, because I thought, there has to be more to their lives than just their gender identity. Or is it the major issue that, that they deal with every single day, every day? And that's one of the questions that I brought up in discussion that I'd like to bring up again. How important or how big a part of your life is your gender identity? Is it the hero's journey, to place it along with that, is a quest for enlightenment? And does your gender identity dictate that as well?
I think it's really simple than that. So I would say that maybe privilege that I'm a cisgender man, and I don't go through some other deep processes in that acceptance journey. I go through my general ones. But definitely, I feel like the gender dictates a lot of the things that I do and how I do them. Mm-hmm. However, I also believe that we don't, and especially the last few years, I've been opening myself to not really have to conform with the rules, right, whatever those are, and allow myself to just go with my gut and go with what I feel feels good. So I believe that I have that privilege and that comfort, but still I know that it's present and it's real and it's a topic to be talked about.
Mm-hmm. So I would say, as a trans man, my gender definitely does dictate a lot in my life, because especially with ballet is a very, very gendered thing, and having to kind of switch from one side to the other side of it was a really big change. But I also feel like my gender it's not like my whole identity, it's just part of who I am. Yeah, that's how I describe it.
Gender is simultaneously everything and nothing. In a way, my personal hero's journey is directly related to my gender identity, because so much of the struggles, the discrimination, the heartbreak, the meeting other people in their discomfort and in their not knowing and finding each other in that has to do with my gender identity. I identify as a non-binary person, as a trans man, trans-masculine person. I don't really like defining my gender because just like for all of us, it's mine and kind of no one else's business. I'm just who I am. And I would say that on my quest for enlightenment, gender is a very spiritual thing for me, as dance is as well. It's a connection to my physical body and my soul and my essence in a way that I feel like I've had to interrogate very deeply because of all of these questions about who I am and what actually makes me feel good. How do I like to be perceived? How do I want to move through the world? How do I want to move through dance and through my body? And the more I have been able to explore that, the more I've been supported in my exploration of that, the more my dancing has grown, the more I've grown as a person, the more expressive I've become. And also the easier technique is because I'm frankly more in my body and more present with myself. So if I can be more aware with my physical being and not constantly feeling like I Yeah, or like I'm in a shell of myself in some type of way. Someone once described their own feeling to me with gender as feeling like they were kind of like behind themselves a little bit and like puppeting themselves around when they were like, yeah. And I resonated with that a lot. It's this feeling of not being inside your body, but being removed from the world and seeing it like there's a foot of glass between everything. So I'm very grateful for not having that glass there anymore, or if it's there, it's just like a window pane.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
I think outside dancers might view everything almost like that in a
Yeah.
way.
Yes.
It's that everything is kind of almost like its own picture. We're observing or trying to be that observation. So when I think gender, I see it as the way we express it, gender expression. Growing up in dance, you see who's the love interest, you see how their relationships are, and so we don't quite question that because we're also coming in terms of who we are. I think the struggle is when we're growing up. Now we're more comfortable, we understand that more, but I think the struggle is when growing up and knowing the difference of, oh, I can take myself out of this, or I can bring myself into this, and finding the differentiation of that, I think is very important.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, for me, I feel very like whole and comfortable with myself as a heterosexual female, but I've noticed that I'm sort of only reminded of like a stricter role that I have to play when I go into like the world of classical ballet, because there are these such strict, often predefined roles of what men and women can be, and so I've enjoyed a lot of those roles, but then I kind of, feel like I hit a wall because it's hard to experiment beyond that, and I feel like as an artist, like I can't find that wholeness unless I'm able to go beyond that hard boundary to be able to experience things that are outside of those very strict kind of restrictions.
One of the things that came up during our discussions, stuck with me when Gabe said, because I think a lot of us who don't have the same issues wonder, why would you do this? Why would you go through this extreme? And Gabe said, it's not like I had a choice. And I think that was really poignant to me. It's like, this explains it. The fact that you would go through that, even as a dancer, when you've been working with your body so much, that was really sort of enlightening to me as to how to look at this process. Because it is a process.
It's definitely a process, but I feel like for a lot of people, like it really isn't any type of choice. It's just like it's something that has to happen.
There's a rite of
And
passage.
until you finally feel like you're actually your whole self, and you're not just putting on a performance like how I felt before. Every 24/7, it's like I'm putting on a mask, I'm putting on a performance. Nobody can actually see what's on the inside, and I just have like this facade. And then now all of that is gone.
All that's
It's
gone.
very freeing. For sure.
Well, one of the questions we asked was, how do you measure your success? So let's go down.
Oh, wow.
Or if anybody wants to say that.
That's a big one, but I'll be short. I feel like how I measure my success is whenever I'm able to do something that makes me feel happy and that makes me feel like I'm fulfilling any kind of goal, or that is bringing me towards something. And I believe that that life, for some reason, life, universe, God, whatever you believe in, like there's a path that your body, your energy goes through, and whenever I feel like I'm in that path, that's how I feel like I'm successful. Like I don't have
Put a price tag on it.
yeah.
I feel like I had like two very drastically different views of like of success. I feel like I used to view success as only in forms of like jobs or roles or accomplishments or things that show that you did something important versus how they make you feel. And now I've been trying to move more towards a mindset where the success is like actually feeling good about what you're doing and like making an actual contribution to the world and society and bringing joy instead of just focusing on yourself, which has been really important to me, and just like being able to share that with others and focusing on others besides just focusing on yourself was a big thing for me.
So every time I have like felt like I have accomplished something without, or like gotten something that I finally wanted, that I've been like working for a really long time, something materialistic, whether that's a job or when I was younger, getting accepted into different programs or whatever have you, always without fail, somehow the ceiling comes crashing down and it's like not what I dreamed it up to be, because that's what life is and that's what dreams are. And I think I would measure success similar to what you were saying, Ralphie, about like my happiness, how I feel in a present moment. Also trusting like the plan of the universe, God, whatever you want to say. And then within that, and like within the things, I view success as like, how am I showing up in those places to make the world around me the world I want to see, like you were saying, Gabe. So standing up for what I think is right, opening my mouth when something is upsetting me and I think it's wrong. And if that means that for some reason the material thing is taken away from me, well, at least I know I stood by my values, I stood by my morals, and I hopefully did something to make the world, this thing, whatever it is, after me, a place better for the people to follow. Yeah, I've had scholarships taken away from me because I've advocated for myself as a trans person in different schools. I've requested like being called MJ, having my name on attendance sheets, being told that.
Also.
I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to name drop. I didn't want to name drop. I went to a conservatory that will not be named, and while I was there, they told me that I could not have MJ on the attendance sheets, and I went up to all of my teachers the first day of school and I said, could you please cross out that name? My name is MJ. And they all did. I accept it. I was like, okay, fine. I can't fight this anymore. With how the sheet is getting printed out, I will tell all of my teachers individually. I asked to be put in men's ballet because we didn't get to see it today, but I am a jumper. And they told me I was not allowed to take men's ballet. Women weren't allowed to, or men weren't allowed to take point. Everyone had to wear, all women had to wear pink tights in ballet class. I asked to wear the men's dress code. They wouldn't allow me to. And eventually I became more outspoken with how I was feeling because I would leave every single ballet class crying. And Dance Spirit magazine at the time, wow, I haven't spoken publicly about this. Dance Spirit magazine interviewed me for an article on non-binary dancers, and I was the student perspective. And I asked my advisors at my school what I should do, what the proper procedure was. I emailed them, told them about the interview, asked if they wanted to see the questions, asked if they wanted to see my answers, what the proper protocol was. No one ever responded to me. So I did the interview. I spoke candidly about my experience. And then after the article was published, no one at the school mentioned it to me, and that spring my scholarship was revoked for the following year. Yeah, and then that fall, the dress code policy was changed to anyone could wear whatever colored clothing they desired as long as it was skin tight. I'm not sure if that policy is the same anymore, if it's been changed back or not, but I heard from friends who were still in attendance that the dress code policy had changed. And I haven't spoken publicly about this to a group of people. I share it very intimately. Thank you. It's a very complicated situation because obviously I trained there and I loved my training there and I loved my teachers there, and everyone there had my best interest at heart. And everyone who unfortunately harmed me in some type of way was also trying to protect me and was also trying to help me. I did feel very loved by my people.
That brings up
Yeah.
one of the issues that we were discussing, which is what you face and where the struggles were.
Yeah.
And some of them were in some very unusual, that's why I mentioned how that I was surprised that you would take that kind of stance. But then I heard others talk about a dance company that they were in that went to Fire Island Dance Company, the Fire Island Dance Festival, and returned, was that gay?
Yeah, it was, I was supposed to do Hanukkah at the Fire Island Dance Festival, which is a very gay, queer, dance festival.
Place.
And the director who was putting this piece together, she brought it to their board who puts together all their pieces and was like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a duet with these people. This is the plan. And they were just like, that's just way too political to put on stage right now. We can't do that.
Because of your involvement.
Because of the fact that I was trans and that I was going to be on the stage. And just my own existence was making it political. Even though I'm just a dancer, I'm just a person that other people view my presence as a threatening political statement, which it really isn't. I'm just a very nice normal person
With gorgeous feet, by the way.
but yeah, so it's just very interesting to see how those struggles come out of the most unexpected places, especially when they're places that are supposed to be, clear, safe spaces, and then anyone that's kind of outside of that gender norm just gets really lost and pushed to the side. And it happened in another ballet company I went to after that, and where I was the only trans dancer, and I faced a lot of discrimination from people in the company, from directors, and then eventually ended up having to leave the company because of all of their transphobic issues, and they were not wanting to be able to bring me in and out of the country because of Trump's laws and all of that. So passport issues. So it's been a lot of
That's why I think this
struggle.
is important, because I really believe that if people understand what is true about these individuals, then there's no threat. And then sort of accept that we all don't have to be exactly the same. We all don't have to love the same type of person, that there are other options in life, and how rich we can become when we open up to these stories. Because, can you talk a little bit about your family and how supportive or non-supportive they are, if you're comfortable with that? Can you talk about that?
Go back.
Go ahead, yeah.
Interesting question. My parents did not want me kids. I came from that family, a very southern family. Both my families from Alabama. So you can kind of get an idea of how that is. Dance was a thing my father felt was threatening his manhood. And I wasn't even thinking about dance in that aspect at the time. I was very much the person who didn't want to wear makeup, didn't even like tights. But I think that aspect of that's what he thought I wanted, and the crossing of that just didn't mesh. And so even then, when they finally let me dance, it was considered a hobby. It wasn't considered a thing that would pursue later as a career. And so even when I find myself, I talked about doing this discussion, and even my mom was like, no, the state of the climate of things are ugly. Why would you want to do that? And I'm like, well, that's exactly why you do that. We did it for the civil rights movement. We did it for many movements. People don't run in fear. They stand up to fear. I think us being a testimony of doing that today and being part of that, it's still an ongoing thing. I didn't even come out to my parents until I was 26. People were like, how do you do that? I was like, you're good at masking. We're good at hiding and keeping those things. I just didn't talk about certain things to my family. Became very career oriented. You're going to get married, think about career. And I think that stuck, and that was a blockage that we have to put on ourselves sometimes. It's a privilege when you can grow up and, have those crushes and pursue those and do those things that in an area that you feel like you're able to flourish. And for us, sometimes we have to wait till out of home to do that. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, so for me, my mother was always really supportive, but very similarly, my father thought it could only ever be a hobby. He came from, an academic background. He was a lawyer, and he was really cruel about it, actually. And he said, well, if you're not going to get into ABT, I don't see how you could have a career. And when you tell someone that who's very young, who really looks up to their father and wants their approval more than anything, it's really devastating. And he's actually one of the main reasons that I had quit dancing for a while, because it was just so devastating to not have the support of someone whose love and support you wanted so much. And so it took a while to find my own strength to restart dancing and to honestly say, like, our relationship is not a relationship anymore. And he's no longer in my life. And that has been the best decision I could have made.
Hard work.
Yeah, it was tough.
Wow.
But for the most part, have your family's been supportive of your decisions in terms of your gender?
For me, yes.
Yeah.
Yes and no. I have a very loving relationship with my family and with my parents, but also very complicated. They don't always understand everything. My dad's from a really big Irish Catholic working class family, and my mom immigrated here from Poland in the 80s, like the fall of USSR, dictatorship, communism, but not, you know what I mean? And also very Catholic family. So, yeah, both of my parents, however, understand what it's like to carve out their own life paths. They understand the hero's journey, you'd say, the heroine's journey, for their own separate reasons that I could write a book about, honestly, and I think one day I will. But my parents don't always understand everything, and we've had a lot of ins and outs in terms of the conversations and the intensity, but as intense as our conversations get, the love is still always there. They're in my life now. They've always supported me dancing. They've always supported anything I do. Ultimately, even if getting to that place sometimes it's a little bit of a bumpy road. Yeah. Very grateful.
Shall we open it up for questions from the audience?
Is there an organization that supports you and advocates for you?
Do you mean trans people in general?
Yes.
The American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, is doing amazing things legally right now to combat different and everything that the Trump administration is doing. ACLU is amazing. I would say, what else?
Is there an organization that supports you as a dancer and trans?
No.
None
No.
whatsoever.
That was really surprising.
I work for a queer ballet company called Ballets, and we are right now an all trans company, and as far as I know, we are the only all transgender ballet organization that I'm aware of. I know there's other queer ballet. There's so much queer ballet.
I'm shocked that the homosexual community has not been supportive of what you guys.
It's our own community.
Yes.
Problem.
So
Yeah.
no, they don't get any support,
No.
as far as I can tell.
However, that doesn't mean that people aren't supportive. I am a really strong believer in people, in connection, in humanity, and being able to connect with people. That's why I love dance. That's why I love performing. And I find the more I do that, the more I'm able to do that, and the more I continue to push to do that against the world. Yes. The more people understand, the more people I resonate with, the more people I connect with, and if all I can do is a drop in the bucket, hopefully one day that'll add up to a full bucket. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Any questions from the audience?
Yes, I have a question, but first I'll leave in. I'm a linguist, but way out of the mainstream linguist. I work on how human beings use our bodies with the tools that we have to express ourselves, to communicate. In my linguistics courses here, I always have an arts component because I want them to do language that way. And I've come to think myself that speech and dance are the most direct art forms because we're not using some external instrument, we're using our own body.
Yeah.
So that's like where I'm coming from. But my question is, a couple of years ago, there was an exhibit at the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts and Lincoln Center that you may have seen. Is it called Borders or Frontiers or Crossings or something? The theme of it was how across the decades from the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, people found in dance freedom of expression that had been denied them elsewhere. Now, there are, of course, boundaries famously in gender roles, but this was about political boundaries, geographical boundaries, and so my question certainly includes gender, but it's broader than that. How do you feel, and if so, how do you feel that dance gives you that freedom of expression?
I feel like for me, at least before I even like physically transitioned, like because I very much in like the classical ballet world, and it is so gendered that like even with my like own body, I felt better doing the men's steps. I felt more comfortable doing like all of their jumps and all of that kind of thing. And it almost like really showed me like, okay, like this is what you want, this is what your body is naturally going to. And that was a really interesting way for me to physically kind of express my gender and how I was feeling.
I think that I've heard that they are trying to deal with this better in terms of training, and that classical ballet classes stopped. Men were separated. They came out last. The music slowed down. They weren't allowed to dance on point. And all of that is, I think, changing. That's what I've heard.
I think it's starting to change
Starting
a little bit.
It's come with the whole structure of the training.
I wanted to add to that. I feel like every art form is an expression of what's happening in society at the time. And because if we bring it to another styles of dance, that most of them are still binary as well, like pretty set up to the roles. But I feel like slowly they're all opening up to breaking those rules and bringing, for example, Salsa World, which is one that I'm pretty close to, having the space in competitions now to have same gender competitions, to have people doing other stuff and not limiting ourselves and changing the language from man and woman to lead and follower, from man and woman to bass and flyer.
Yes.
I think those things are slowly helping that transition. It's taking a long time, obviously, but I think it's starting to evolve.
But back to your question, I do think that using non-binary dancers elicits a different response from the audience, and we're still experimenting on what that response is. I think it can be very complex. I think sexuality is very complex. So even touching on it in these pieces, you can sense in the audience whether they're open to it or not, and I find that really fascinating. I find audiences really fascinating. So expressing things that are almost impossible to say is easier to do.
dance than it is.
Dance was the first form of communication, even before singing and speech. Dance was the first form of communication. What you saw in the hunt, what you were looking for, you explained it to you danced to them. And of course, then that it got to, if you're going to express to whatever your gods were, fire, earth, whatever, you performed for them. I mean, this is our first kind of communication that we have.
Martha Graham said this was the first fence ever put up.
So what you've been saying, especially talking about classical ballet and the very gendered roles, is that, it seems to me, tell me if this is wrong, you've been saying that dance, traditional dance, has actually calcified those roles, and you have had to work against them.
Classical ballet, that's for sure.
Yeah. I would say like in the more like modern and contemporary world, they've been a little bit more open to it, but as someone who's like strictly been in like classical ballet training, classical ballet companies, it's
Ballet has always given us the form.
very, and rigid format that
Yeah, rigid format that where other genres have taken and pulled away from, but as a structure of its own, ballet is the purest form that we take from.
And that's what I find so exciting, is that contemporary ballet can use that vocabulary to express all sorts of things. You know, outside the boundaries of what they have in the classroom. You can take those movements and use them for something else much more important.
I mean, that's how contemporary was made. It's breaking from the traditional forms that people were already feeling at the time. And that's how modern dance became. We got our jobs.
And there was a lot more supportive female choreographers in contemporary dance than classical ballet, that's for sure.
Still pretty low.
Yeah. I think, unless anybody has anything else to say. Good? Any other questions? Too long.
So you mentioned that you found that the audience reaction is a particular piece, and maybe this is for the group, but have you found that the audience reaction to, let's just say, non-traditional dancers has shifted over the last 5 or 10 years, that sort of people are used to seeing different gender expressions, different ages, different...
Definitely body types, yes.
Different
Colors,
abilities
as well.
I think people are getting more comfortable with the idea of playing with it. I think before they would like do it to just see how it would work, and sometimes they just did it, but I think people are like, oh, let's do this. Like, no, we should bring this person in. I think it's getting comfortable with the idea.
I mean, I was always, as a director of a school, I tried to put into practice same color types as your skin, so that, you know, you're not pink from the waist down, but you're a different color from the waist. I never understood that. And the resistance I got came from very unusual places I wouldn't expect. Parents of girls of color said, I don't want her to look different than the rest of the girls. They're wearing pink tights. I want my daughter to wear pink tights. You can't really fight that. I mean, what could I say to that?
Trauma response.
Yeah. So we are facing a lot to get classical ballet back into the, into the 21st century. But I think it can happen. That's why I love contemporary ballet, because I think that answers all of it. We don't have to just talk about fairies. Nobody gets a Spanish dance for a birthday present anymore.
Without contemporary ballet, we wouldn't even have like ballet slippers.
Exactly.
You had to fight tooth and nails to even get that.
Yes.
And that was the whole thing, like not even 10 years ago.
Yeah. I would also, one like final thing that I want to say is like, I feel as a trans person, the direct relationship between like politics, my body, and dance and art and creation, and how these two go hand in hand. And my body is like the vessel and also like the in-between. The state of the world right now for transgender people is really scary. It's scarier than it was 5 years ago. 5 years ago felt different. 2020 felt different than 2025 does for trans people. 2018 felt a lot different than 2025 does in terms of my physical safety when I'm out on the street, to be very frank. However, like my presence in the dance world, my art making, my creation, as a dancer, my body is always the medium. So my transness, my body not being typical to what people expect to see on stage will always be part of who I am and my dancing. And as this world, this political world shifts, it's imperative to me that like my dancing, I like hold it and I like tend to it and I protect it and I keep working with it, because art and like politics go hand in hand. How times change and how things manifest or don't manifest and all of the different ways the world can look, I think art is directly related to. And our voices are directly related to.
I think it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would you add activists to that as well?
For myself,
Yes.
would I call myself an activist? That's a very complicated question for me. I think within the world of dance, I could consider myself an activist because I'm very outspoken for myself and my community, and especially in the places that I'm in, specifically within the dance world. However, in a larger scope of political activism, I'm not organizing marches, I'm not organizing town halls, I'm not on the Zoom info webinar, exactly. Yeah, so I don't know how I quite feel about that word all of the time, because there's a lot of work politically to be done that, frankly, I am not doing myself every given moment, because I feel like my efforts are best in what I know. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
did talk about the difference in the political situation now as opposed to when we were young, we were their age, how different it was now. We faced a lot of challenges and it was very violent, but this period seems so negative and so polarized. Yeah, as a parent, I'm concerned.
It's very passive aggressive.
Yeah,
Yes.
passive aggressive.
I think it's all social
Aggressive.
media. I think social media is.
You said that
Our
you
ability
turned
to
off
connect with
social,
each other.
you would turn off social media.
I delete Instagram off my phone after every time I make an Instagram post, and I re-download it every time I need to make a post, and then I delete it right after again, because it's really bad for my brain to have Instagram on my phone. It makes me feel horrible. No, exactly. It makes me feel so bad about the state of the world. And when I'm able to turn off my phone or disconnect from this virtual world, I remember that I can like talk to people, that I can take my headphones off and listen to the birds chirping while I'm walking down the street, or I can smile to someone and wave when I'm walking past if we make eye contact, instead of shuffling by with my eyes like everyone's in such a, and I know that's the New York thing, or people think it's the New York thing, but honestly, I also think seeing each other and like knowing your neighbors is a New York thing. I think knowing your community is what like it really means to be anywhere. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing lately too. Personal note.
Wow. Well, thank you all for staying with us.
Okay, tongues.